Stop the lathe and inspect your work. There should be an even coating with an even gloss over the entire surface. To remove the chuck, put the index pin back in and unscrew the work from the chuck. You need to remove the screw setter, which is the reverse of putting it in. Place it back on the tool rack and fit the base onto the jaws and turn the Tommy bar towards you to widen the jaws to secure your base. Make sure it's running true. Replace the tool rest in the bracket and position it parallel with the base, about 6 mm below centre height. Use a round nose scraper to get the base flat for the top surface. Go from side to side along the tool rest, using your finger against the rest to control the depth of the cut. We now need to bore a hole in the base for the stem. Use a 25mm Forstner bit in the Jacob's chuck. Tighten the chuck firmly with a chuck key, using more than one of the holes to ensure that it's tight. Insert the chuck firmly into the tailstock spindle, then slide the tailstock up to the base. Remove the tool rest and continue sliding the tailstock till the bit is almost touching the base. Tighten the locking lever of the tailstock. Feed the bit into the rotating work until a depth of 20mm is reached. Here the tailstock was not close enough, so it had to be repositioned, so there was more travel in the tailstock. Move in and out to clear the shavings as you bore the hole. And some shaping has already been done. Final shaping is being done with a round nose scraper. Very gentle pressure is being applied, and a very fine shavings are taken off. On inspecting the surface, we see the side grain is nice and smooth, but some end grain is still torn. I'm going to have to shear scrape that surface to get rid of that torn grain. You can see the tears nearer the outside edge. For shear scraping, the tool is held on its side and dragged across the tool rests. The cuts are very gentle and occur only on the bottom portion of the tool's edge. I'm happy with that. Turn the tool rest to be parallel with the top surface of the base. Here a parting tool is used to create a small shoulder. The round nose scraper is held on its edge on its side for a shear scrape, going from the centre to the outside. Stop the machine to have a check. Move the tool rest a bit closer. I can still see some torn grain that needs to be removed. So I'll try again. Now this may not give me a perfectly flat surface, so now I'm using a skew chisel on its side to get the surface perfectly flat. And because I've removed some material, I'll redefine the shoulder with the parting tool. Remove the tool rest for sanding. Here I'm using 80 grit paper. It's fairly coarse, but I'll only be using it for a short while. It'll remove marks quickly. Notice I'm using two hands to support the paper, and I'm sanding on the bottom quarter of the work. Notice the dust is flowing into the dust extractor hood by sanding this way. To sand convex curves, I can wrap the paper around my finger so that I can get into the curve. Notice that I keep the paper moving. The edge of the paper can be used to get into small surfaces. This is the wrong way to sand. The dust will be directed towards your face. This is the correct way. Continue sanding with 180 grit paper, getting into all the crevices. Then use 240. And finally with 320 grit. A bit of sawdust can be used for final burnishing. Our final inspection reveals a very smooth surface, silky to the touch, with no torn end grain. You'll see even on close inspection there's no grain torn. It's ready for finishing. An extra degree of luster can be achieved by using Triple E Ultra Shine before using the Shellawax cream. Like the Shellawax, it's applied with a soft cloth, folded into a pad. Wipe it onto the surface, ensuring that it gets into all the grooves, and particularly into the end grain. Make sure it covers the entire surface before turning the machine on and buffing it in. The base now looks nicely polished, but it is still not finished yet. The Triple E Shine does not give any protection. You need to apply Shellawax cream to give it final protection. Wipe it evenly over the surface as you did for the underside. Make sure you get into all the crevices. Turn on the lathe and blend the wax into the timber with a soft, clean cloth. Frequently turn the cloth. Check your work. Make sure that the finish is even over the entire surface. It should be nice and glossy. Engage the index pin. Use the Tommy bar, pushing it away from you. Release your work from the chuck. And you're done.